Ever feel like you're pulling life's weight all on your own? Like you're on this team, but someone on the team isn't pulling their share, or worse, you're not even on the same page. Well, unity sounds nice, but real unity, it requires something deeper than just being in the same room. It requires the same mind. And for the Christian, that's the mind of Christ.
You're listening to The Few Podcast with Benji Buck.
Welcome back to The Few Podcast, where we believe that even in a crowded world, it's the few who pursue life fully alive in Christ. We're in a series called Identity in Christ Alone, walking through Paul's letter to the church of Philippi to discover how Christ defines and sustains us. In episode 1, we saw Christ as our life. Today, we'll explore what it means that Christ is our mind and how embracing his mind leads us to joy, humility, and purpose. We're going to be looking in today's episode at Philippians chapter 2, and in verse 2, Paul says that his joy is complete when we are all like-minded. And all of our joy is complete the same way. When we have the same love, the same spirit, the same mind. The unity he's calling for isn't this forced, contrived conformity. It's shared direction, like following the same drum major as a marching band. When I was in college, I worked for Greenville Carriage Company. We had a percher and horse named Sergeant Dan who would pull a white, beautiful carriage for weddings. But then we also had this incredible team of Belgian horses, Amos and Andy. They were massive animals. As a matter of fact, they were the third largest Belgian team in the world at the time. And when they were in sync, they were majestic. But Andy, he liked to slack off from time to time. And from the driver's seat, we'd call out, "Amos, Andy, come on, boys." And they'd snap too. It's under the direction of a common driver that freedom and joy become possible. In verse 3, and we'll carry that on through verse 8, Paul says that we shouldn't be working out of our selfish ambitions or vain conceit. Like, I want to have a popular social media platform. Rather, in humility, we are supposed to value others above ourselves. Then he gives us a blueprint for this. And that blueprint is Christ himself. Though he was God, Jesus humbled himself to become a man. And not just any man, but one who would die a criminal's death on the cross. Tim Keller puts it like this: the essence of the gospel humility is not thinking more of myself or less of myself. It's thinking of myself less. You see, that's the mind of Christ. He wasn't thinking of himself when he took on the form of man unto death. He was thinking of others. It's where real joy is born. When we humble ourselves to serve others, even when the world tells us it's foolish, we find joy. Moving now to verses 14 through 16, Paul calls out his culture. In verse 15, he refers to it as crooked and perverse. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? In our own backyard here in Greenville, South Carolina, we've recently heard of a couple different stories where unthinkable acts of abandoning and killing babies. There's violence, there's theft. But we're not just talking about these heinous outlier events. It's stuff that you can relate to. Paul's talking about the perverse and crooked events that take place in our own homes. Dad coming home in a rage, had a bad day at work, tried to smooth that out with a few too many beers, and he comes home and now he unleashes his wrath on the family. The crooked and perverse where our own friends at our place of work is betraying us and backstabbing us, all because they want to get ahead in life. the crookedness that we see in our own churches. We live in a crooked and perverse world. But here's the contrast. Paul says, we shine like stars in a world when we simply obey God. No flashy Instagram quote required. Just obedience, quiet faithfulness, and joy that shines in darkness. You see, joy isn't found in what the world promotes. Drunkenness, fame, pleasure. It's found in obeying Christ when it's hard. When friends betray us, when family life is heavy, when careers disappoint. In my young adult career, I was waiting tables at a high-end restaurant. My goal was to someday own one of the top restaurants in the Southeast. But while I was working the floor, I realized that my manager forgot about a large reservation. When I tried to step in and help, she berated me in front of everyone. She made me look like a fool in front of my coworkers, in front of the patrons. I was crushed and embarrassed. And as I came home and blasted this lady to my wife, in her sweet, humble spirit, she said something I shall never forget. She said, Benji, think long term. Think eternity. Unless she enters a relationship with Jesus Christ, this is her best glory. Let her have it. You stay humble, knowing that God's best is yet to come for you. Dr. Danny Aiken out of North Carolina says, humility and obedience are the highway on which the gospel travels. And on that day when I allowed my joy to be robbed because of my lack of humility, I did not provide a highway for the gospel to travel in front of my coworkers and in front of the patrons there in that restaurant. But that's what we're called to. So the question is, what's the move? Christ is your mind. So think like him. Obey like him. Humble yourself like him. If you want true joy, get in sync with the one who leads with love, not pride. And here's your move. This week, choose one area where you've been pulling in your own direction for your own promotion. Maybe it's in a friendship, a marriage, your attitude at work. Start by repenting. That means that you turn from the ways that you've been and you get back in line with the mind of Christ. Next week, we're going to continue this series with the truth we all need. Christ is our strength. And when you're out of energy, out of patience, and ready to quit, he isn't. Don't miss it. You've been listening to The Few Podcast. I'm your host, Benji Buck. And if this episode has helped you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like, subscribe, and make sure that you continue being part of the community, The Few. Until next time, walk humbly, think eternally, and keep your eyes on Christ.
Thanks for joining us, and be sure to subscribe to The Few Podcast.